guys, and happy Halloween! So I did promise that I would do some kind of an extra video on chapter 844. And I think this also works better because doing extra videos, I'm pretty sure a lot of people won't find this, so I'll have a smaller community to discuss with, which is a lot easier, I guess. But I basically want to bring up 2 points that I've seen people discussing, because I said, weirdly in my Haikyuu anime video, but I said that this chapter especially has been raising like a lot of controversy in the fandom, because it's usual that you have a lot of mixed opinions on a lot of things, but I find that with this chapter people's conflicting opinions have been really strong, and a lot of people have found it really hard to like back down from their opinion, and I have been kind of fluid. I think I've been swifting around a lot. Especially with how I've viewed Nami's actions. I've been like all over the place. I've been thinking everything from like, yeah, everything, because it's very easy to sway me when I'm uncertain of things, and it's just good to keep an open mind. But I'm gonna end off with, I'm gonna start with Nami because I'm now already on her. So yeah, I'm gonna start with Nami as the one of the 2 topics I feel like people have really been discussing. But not as heated as the second one I'm gonna go into. Because I feel like with this chapter, a lot of people came in with the idea that Nami was probably gonna be the one who got the hint that, okay, Sanji's acting this way, he's lying, he's being harsh because something's going on, like she has been in a very close or similar situation to what he's in, she would probably like catch on. But as we see in the chapter, whether or not she catches on, she's still kind of angry with him, and even when Luffy is like, Sanji, I get that you're the one hurting, she's like, okay, I don't care what his reasons were, he still took it a step too far. It seems that a lot of people are not understanding quite where Nami is, and I've said this to a lot of people. I think it is too early to judge Nami. And this isn't to put, the reason that I'm talking about this is not to put a conclusion out there or like an answer to why she's acting this way, but it's more to start the conversation and then just hopefully get a lot of people to the conclusion that we can't conclude where Nami stands, because we aren't entirely sure what is actually going on with her. And I'm really glad that I waited this long to do the video, because I did promise I would do this on Saturday, but having waited until now, we have the official translation. And if you remember in my live reaction, which I'm pretty sure a lot of you saw, I said when Nami slapped Sanji, I said that if there was no exchange between Sanji and Luffy, that definitely was between Sanji and Nami. Now, I might still be wrong about this, because with the end of the chapter, I do think that a message between Sanji and anyone doesn't really matter, because Luffy seemed to get the message anyway. But I think it's really interesting how different it's worded in the official translation versus the scanlation. So let me just read the middle panel of page whatever it is. But Nami says, "Goodbye, sorry for overstepping our bounds." And I discussed this with a friend, because there are 2 very big differences here. So in the scanlation, Nami says, "I beg you forgive me for my heavy-handed approach." Now the first really big difference here is that in the scanlation, Nami talks only about herself, "I beg you forgive me." And in the official translation, she talks about both her and Luffy, because she says our, and in Japanese they do have the difference between singular and plural, which means that we should probably stick to the official translation, being that she's talking about 2 people. Now this means that she's taking Luffy's actions into account as well, which means that she's probably not talking about the fact that she slapped him, but the fact that they have either, as I talked with my friend, she's either referring to the fact that, oh, they're a lowly peasant standing in his presence, as he said in the scanlations, which I thought that was really fun because that rhymed. But basically just the fact that, oh my god, he's a prince and they're peasants and they shouldn't really mingle and stuff like that. Or it could just be the fact that she understands that when they came to try to take him back, that was wrong timing. Could be either, could be a third option, feel free to leave your suggestions. Personally, I want it to be the fact that she's understanding that that it was just really bad timing from their part, but I could totally understand that she's feeling hurt and very emotional, and that she just thinks that, well, maybe we just, our statuses are so different and stuff like that. Or just like, she could just be very emotional and not thinking straight. Like, there's so many options, which is why I'm bringing this back up. But again, I want you to, when you like make your comment or whatever, just have an open mind and don't be rude to people who don't have the same opinion as you have. Right, so the second thing I want to touch upon is something I've seen a lot of heated conversations about. And that is the question of whether or not Sanji went too far in his beating up of his captain. Because I have seen the argument that Sanji went too far because there should be no precedent for Sanji treating his captain that way. That is unrespectful and disrespectful. He shouldn't do it, and no matter what like the circumstances he had, where Luffy was so weak at that point, he was so like exhausted that there was literally no point for Sanji to use some of his strongest attacks like Haki, Flames, Diablo Jump, you name it, like everything was just used against Luffy, and he looked like shit by the end and he lost a tooth and everything. Then there's of course the argument that yes, it might have seen that he looked, it might have looked that he went too far, but considering his circumstances, it was probably a lot safer for Sanji to do this to Luffy than it would be for him to not cross that special line and then for his family to have to go finish Luffy off, because that would have been an even shittier situation. And then I've seen the argument that Sanji did not go too far, did not go far enough, and that to really have made his point, he should have gone even further than what he did. Like, he should have made sure that Luffy was out cold. Those are three pretty different statements, and I'm actually gonna read what my reply to one of these threads were, because I think it's all a matter of considering what the situation were, what the Beansmokes would have done had Sanji acted differently, what kind of pressure Sanji was under, and just how he responded to the fact that Luffy didn't fight against him. So I'm gonna read what my response to these three, because they were all present in this thing. So I said, at this point I think we can all agree that what occurred was completely unacceptable. However, taking Sanji's situation into account, we all arrived at a different view on how Sanji and Luffy handled it. So here's my view on it. I can understand all these arguments, the three that I mentioned earlier, and I will stand by the fact that I accept Sanji's actions, because I think he did go a little too far, but I think he did so because, one, and these are important, he was put on the spot and fighting was the only solution he saw, and two, Luffy not fighting against him was something he had not planned for. I think this is really, really important, because I feel like in the panels, like the pages we had with Sanji fighting Luffy, Sanji seemed very, very shocked that Luffy didn't fight back, and he did try to provoke Luffy a lot into fighting back. And when Luffy didn't do so, he just seemed to get more and more frustrated. Right. I think the fact that Luffy did not fight or defend himself was so groundbreaking for Sanji in that moment that it pushed him to finish him off, because as much as he tried to make Luffy leave by badmouthing him and saying that he hated all of them, Luffy still stayed. And I think Sanji was so afraid of anyone interfering that he had to take care of it himself, and that led to the extremes he took. And because of the pressure he was under, he took it a step too far, and I think Sanji knows that as well. I think that if Sanji's mind had been more stable, he might have found another solution, but, just like with Nami, emotion hit him too hard, and that can very easily lead to his actions being more rash and explosive than he might have intended. And this goes well with Sanji's character of just generally being a very rash, and like he has a fiery temperament. So just having emotion control his actions might have been a very good reason for what he did. Like, it still not completely justifies it, but at the very least he avoided the worst possible outcome, which would be the Beansmokes interfering and then killing Luffy right then and there. Because no matter what Luffy's strength is and whether or not he is actually stronger than Beansmoke, fact is they were like outnumbered him by far. They had Sanji hostage, they could easily have taken Nami hostage, and of course Luffy had just been fighting Cracker for 11 hours, so he probably wasn't strong enough to take even one of them. Okay, continue on Luffy. Going back to Luffy's emotional intelligence, I talked about this in my review. I think Luffy understands this referring to Sanji's situation. When Luffy says that with every kick Sanji dealt, it wasn't Luffy feeling that pain, it was Sanji. This is Luffy saying that he understands Sanji's pain and turmoil. There is no doubt in my mind that what some of us and Nami viewed as disrespectful was something Luffy understood and had no problem with, because he knew that Sanji was lying and that Sanji was forcing himself to do something he didn't want to do. And on top of that, Luffy is also the kind of person who can easily go too far. He admitted this in the previous chapter. So for Sanji to treat him in this way is not something which Luffy would view as disrespectful. It would be something he'd view as human and a trait he can identify with. Lastly, Luffy putting his faith in Sanji should prove that Luffy does not have a problem with what occurred. Rather, he accepts it and trusts that Sanji is strong enough to find a way out, because Luffy knows just how much Sanji is hurting because of how he is forced to act. Yeah, that was basically my reply to that to those comments. You can agree or disagree with me. But I think that, yeah, everything about this chapter really comes down to what whose view you're watching from, and just like, you need to take everything into consideration and just form your own opinion from that. So I guess those are basically my final thoughts on this chapter. I know that I haven't been talking about the Veensmugs, and there are a lot of reasons for me not kind of talking about them. First of all, I do talk about them a lot, and all the things that we got in this chapter from the Veensmugs were either like very, very direct and not something you can really discuss, like just like Yonji and Niji. Yonji mostly, I think, fanboying over Nami. Like, those things are very straightforward, and I don't think we need to discuss that, and everything else was very convoluted and vague. So I think I'm gonna talk about that maybe when we see them next time, because then I have more material to talk about. But yeah, I think this basically concludes this video. If you, I think I've said this like 3 times now, but what I really want to do is start a discussion again with, hopefully with a lot of open minds, and a little fewer minds, because I got a lot of opinions on my live reaction, because holy shit, that got a lot of views, a lot of mixed opinions, and while that's great and all, discussion heavy chapters are better, I feel like, when you have a small, very engaging community. So I would want you to comment, but please be respectful, because in my live reaction I saw some very, very rude comments, and I do not approve of people being rude to each other. Please respect each other. Spread some positivity, don't spread negativity. That's really all I want here. But yeah, this rounds up this video, and I will see you with my live reaction of chapter 845 on Thursday. So yeah, bye!